All right. It seems that we are live now.
Hi, everyone.
How are you, Andrew? How are you, Alex? How's
Good.
everyone?
Nice to be back. We had quite a long break, right?
Quite a long one, yeah. Which was the last one? December? November? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was December, beginning of December. So yeah, we're 24 people now. Maybe we can start with the introduction of what ProductTank is and what the product is, if you want, Guido.
All right. So welcome, everybody. My name is Guido Netti, and I'm co-organizer of ProductTank Barcelona, along with my friend Alex Hip, Loic, and Gino, who are not here today. ProductTank is the biggest product management community in the world. We are present in more than 200 cities. I think it's around 220 cities, which is quite a lot. And meetups are super active lately during COVID with these kind of remote formats. And today we are going to have a great speaker, Andrew Moll from Abacum. And also we're going to have a panel session afterwards with more participants. It's going to be amazing. And we are going to talk about the challenges of being the first PM at a company, which Andrew described like going from 0 to 1 instead of going from 1 to X, which is usually what we as product managers are challenged to do. So without any more further introduction, I will give the word to Andrew to start his presentation.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Guido. So as Guido said, I'm here to talk about the role of the first PM. So I'm Andrew, and my specialty is building new products. So let's take a quick look at a few that I've done throughout the years. So boom, this is my first digital product. Don't laugh. This was really cool back in 2014. I was working at Microsoft and building prepackaged consulting engagements that analyzed big data sets and did some machine learning. And this Twitter dashboard was a hit. We implemented it at different banks up and down the East Coast. It was fun, but maybe something a little more modern makes more sense to talk about. So I spent about 2.5 years at TravelPerk, which went from their Series A through the Series C, and about from 4 PMs to 15, almost all the way into 20. And in there, many opportunities to build new products, right? So my problem space included the financial manager, and then all the monetization and revenue that came from our companies. So basically through launching a number of new products, here's one FlexiPerk that was a cancellation service for business travelers, new premium pricing, a new package, moving things between both of these. We were able to do some cool things. We increased the revenue from the portfolio from 2% of total to almost 50. And then before leaving there, I launched another feature, quite sizable, which was the budgets. Unfortunately, launching a feature that allows you to control budgets as the pandemic is closing or was beginning. Maybe it didn't have the craziest launch, but I'm sure that it'll be a nice gift for whoever is looking over that in 2024 when travel returns. So I also have an entrepreneurial itch. I started 2 successful businesses. One was an exterior painting company, which I ran for about 1.5 years. And then a subscription box service, which we sent CrossFit materials across the lower half of Brazil. And we eventually sold that to Starkey, which is a subscription box conglomerate in Sao Paulo, which I had no idea those conglomerates actually existed. But now I'm the only PM and current head of product at Abacum. So Abacum helps finance teams scaling companies make better, faster decisions every day. And I've been with the company for about 7 months now. And in that time, we've gone from emailing spreadsheets back and forth with clients to actually a platform where clients can analyze, collaborate, and manage their stakeholders in real time. It's been a bit of a wild journey because we also successfully graduated from Y Combinator, raising a seed round just a few weeks ago. And it's been a real whirlwind. I'm looking forward to sharing some of the things that we've learned along the way and what I view as the pieces of success that helped us graduate from YC and raise the money that we did. But before I do jump into that, I want us to ground ourselves a little bit so that we all have the same context going into this. And I want to ask, what is product management really about? And so for me, at the end of the day, product managers are accountable for business results. They can take whatever route they want to achieve said results. That most commonly, what we end up doing is we go through multiple cycles of discovery, delivery, discovery, delivery, discovery, 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 delivery. And then we achieve these results, right? So we work together with UX research to design experiments and product strategists to build business cases, sometimes with engineers, customer success, and project managers to help bring that vision to life. And data analysts, designers, and product marketing managers help us plug all the gaps that show up. It's a really cross-functional role. And I'm sure this isn't news to any of you, but at the end of the day, we may have to take some decisions, but the majority of our time is spent working with experts to make sure we build what's best for our customers. So that's the product manager accountability that we hear a lot about. So how does this change when you're the first PM? Well, surprise, it doesn't change. You're still accountable for the business results. But you just don't have all of these experts in the company to work with. So I've yet to find a pre-seed company that has a product strategist or products ops or something like this before they hire a PM. Maybe they're out there. I haven't seen them, and I'm not sure that I would be ready to jump into that company, but traditionally it's the PM first. So at Abacum, I was hire number 11. And the team at that time consisted of 2 founders, 4 engineers, a designer, and 3 customer success team members. So that was what we were working with. Warning. So here I'm going to deviate a little bit from maybe the product mantra you're used to hearing. This is okay. Most of that mantra comes from product managers in more established companies. They have a little more time to think through some of these, and they have more people to work with. I think there's a reason that you don't hear from so many first PMs. It's because we're really, really busy, and we don't often make time to share the experiences. So just a small warning. But let's get a head start and talk about discovery. So what is discovery? In my mind, it's many things, but I like to define it this way, that discovery is an exchange of time for an increase in confidence that what we aim to build will solve our customer's problem. It's a nice definition, but time is really, really expensive. And this is made even worse when we think about the time in terms of runway for new companies. I think we can all recognize that the younger the company, the shorter the runway. So that's what this graph shows. On the left, you have months. On the bottom, you have startup size. And you see that the runway of these companies, as it's getting started to when it's scaling, have different runways, which means that when you're in a pre-seed, you're the only PM, you have to go fast. But this is okay, because the speed at which you can deliver something is basically inversely proportionate to the maturity of your product and company. And this is due to a number of reasons, right? This could be the size of the code base, the amount of tech debt you've accumulated, the number of stakeholders, and the complexity of your business. All of that increases as you have more mature your company, and that influences your speed of delivery. But again, this is okay, because our goals are different. When we're in the beginning, we're shipping to learn. We're not shipping to earn. When you have a large customer base that's using your product, you can go ahead and start to ship things to try and build upon that customer base, build a business, and earn some money from that. But when you're in a scaling company or a pre-seed company with venture-backed, you're really shipping to learn. And you don't have a large customer base usually to go and build revenue on. You're trying to understand how you can get the pieces in place to build that. So let's put this another way. So I believe that the confidence you need to begin delivery is lower when you are starting a product or company. And so that's what this graph shows, right? On the left, you have the confidence of success. On the bottom, again, product or company maturity. And then this is showing at what point is it right to start delivery. Again, you'll see that there's a difference as the company size changes. And this, again, is okay, because it's the inverse of your shipping speed graph. It makes sense, because if you're shipping fast, you can actually use a portion of what you're shipping in the discovery process. You'll also notice that I'm not advocating for just starting at 0%. There is some research that has to get done. And at this point, maybe you're skeptical and you're asking yourself a bit, why don't we just do more research and increase the confidence of success? Well, when you're just starting at a company or in the beginning, it's likely that you can't solely research your way to an 80%, 90%, 100% confidence level. It just might not be possible. First, you don't have A/B testing in your tool belt, so nothing's going to be 100%. You can't reach that SIG. Then the questions you're asking at this stage are to reduce the risk of no customer value. It's things like, where are they spending their time? What is painful for them? And without being able to provide participants with more context, it's going to be hard to validate deeper than that. These risks like feasibility, usability, and viability. So to build up this research capability and this confidence of success, your users need to be able to interact and play with a real product so that you can create this shared context, and they'll be able to show you more additional needs as you continue to learn it and as you mature. Additionally, the other thing is that you don't have a nice basket of customers that are just waiting for you to interview. There's no backlog of Zendesk tickets to mine for ideas. You really need to have to get creative in how you find your way to get to this 30% research. So some of the things that have worked well for us is getting creative on how you source candidates and how you actually do the research. So actually the first 15 minutes of every sales call we do is a high-level research on our value prop. And we just do that. We record it, we put everything into one central location, and we check it every once in a while to make sure we're still on the right path. We've also done some pretty crazy things to find candidates, right? We ask investors sometimes not only for people to talk to for sales, but who can we talk to for research? I've reached out from friends from college. All of us in the company have done that to say, hey, looks like you're in now an FP&A position. Would you like to have 30 minutes? Like, I know we haven't talked in a while, but it would be really helpful. We've done LinkedIn cold outreach. So just literally sending a in message to someone asking if they'll participate. And we've also looked at some Reddit threads and asked questions there, and also just consumed some content like the AMA for the Excel team in other ways. So we found that customers or potential customers and participants were really receptive to this because the problem that we were solving wasn't getting as much attention from others as we had expected. We also had a lot of success with user value ranking research. So this is an example here where we described 3 problems that we discovered in previous research sessions, and then just asked the participant to vote using bags of money on which problems they would pay for a solution. So in this example, you see that they're really interested in mapping, mildly interested in performance, and that the granularity actually didn't care. They didn't care so much for that. And then what this is nice about is it really helps segue, because we're using bags of money, we're talking about money, what would they want to pay for? It really segments nicely into understanding, what's their willingness to pay, and are they interested in joining a paid beta? And because each of these sessions is expensive because of the cost to recruit, make sure that you're doing what you need to get the most out of them. So make changes between sessions, whatever is the most to get out of your time. And here's where I'm going to bend some rules. And I'm not going to be super dogmatic about needing to show the exact same prototype or the exact same questions to the whole research pool. I think that it's too expensive to really do that. So if you learn something obviously right, we'll make the change, because then the user will tell us about something else, and maybe they can get feedback on that change as well. Also, don't be afraid to do pricing research early. We've played a lot with our pricing metric. We've changed quite a bit from just discussions with potential upcoming clients and our existing clients. And it also helped us to learn quickly who's interested in signing, and then let us focus on the leads that really matter. Step in and do some repetitive work. Don't be afraid of things that don't scale. Some of the most impactful research sessions that we did was like actually sitting with clients as they were building out models and spreadsheets, and doing proof of concepts with them, because you really build the empathy with the customer when you go through their day-to-day without the solution that you've built to help them solve that. So it's a great way to learn. How else can we go ahead and increase the confidence of success? So the other piece of this is product judgment. You're never going to get to 100% confidence without A/B testing, but you can get pretty close. So what is product judgment? Product judgment is the idea that you can use your own judgment to accurately predict what your customers need, want, and value, and then design and ship the right solution for them. I'm a firm believer that product judgment can be taught, and it's not just some innate skill that some people are born with. But the first step in being able to train your own product judgment is recognize when it's being used. So here's a few examples that I see with product judgment that cue me into, hey, this is being product judgment being used, and gives me some hints on what I can do to apply that as well. So my favorite is this first one, which is just, I saw blank do blank. And I use Netflix here as an example, because imagine you have to display a large list of videos. What are you going to do? Likely, you can go out, you can do research, you can start from scratch, or you can start from Netflix, right? Like Netflix uses a carousel. They've done it for a while. Maybe that's where you should start. And then you're able to make a decision faster. And likely, it's a pretty good decision, because Netflix, I'm sure, has A/B tested that every which way. So you can just copy in a way. So I saw X do Y, bringing that into your product is a great way to use and recognize product judgment. This should be X, not Y. I remember hearing this for the first time when I was building a queue for processing travel approval requests. I was going about it in another way, and a colleague came up and basically said, hey, what are you doing? And I told them, we were going back and forth, and in a nice way, he gave some feedback, and he's like, I think your queue should be an inbox, and then listed 3 or 4 different reasons why. And then he walked away, and I sat there and I thought about it, and he was totally right. And that was a moment where you could hear product judgment come through, and something that I listened to and begin finding. There's another one, like likely this was built for X, Y, and Z. Here I think of Chesterton's fence, which is basically, it states if you come across the gate and say, I don't see the use of this gate, let's clear it away. You should really think about that. And you should go away and think until you actually know why this gate or this feature or this whatever was created, and in other products as well, not only your own. And then you can go ahead and destroy it, because you know why it's there and you know it's not serving its purpose, and then you can get rid of it. But if someone went through all of this time to build something, or all of this time to think through something, there's probably a reason underneath. And when you hear this, it's a hint for strong systems thinking. We should measure X instead. This one shouldn't be surprising. I mean, this comes from like a strong systems thinking cue, and it's just an innate understanding of cause and effect. So when we're looking to build product judgment, listen for people saying these things and then learn from them. Ask them what they do in their free time, what their favorite products are. Go play with them. Play with other products. Go on Product Hunt. I get a lot of spam mail, and I end up clicking on way too much of it because I just want to see what happens. And it can be quite annoying, right? Like if I'm trying to do something quickly and I have to follow the flow to understand, oh, why is this happening? And then I try and think and decompose down into what was created for. And once you start building some product judgment, or maybe you already have it today, but I don't think you can really use product judgment without trusting your gut. You're going to feel it. You're going to know this is right, this is wrong, and you might not be able to vocalize it right away, but think about it a little bit and try and understand, like, why do I feel this way? And just get in touch with your gut. And then build empathy through exposure to new things. Go to museums, learn a new language, study philosophy, just try and be a polymath. By exposing yourself to other different areas, you'll find more things to bring into product that will help you. And then if all of these don't work, right, just build the wrong thing. It's not the most effective. It's probably the most painful, but you're probably not going to do it twice. So maybe it is really effective. So if I had to summarize this whole discovery section into one mantra, I would say this is focus on being directionally correct. What do I mean by directionally correct? So take a look at this photo. How do we know which is the right way? Do we really know which is the right way? They might go together in the end. We probably don't know which one's the right way, but we definitely know the left way is wrong. Otherwise, we have to fight a bear. And I really don't think we're trying to fight a bear. So in this situation, we should go right. It doesn't matter how right we go. If we go really right, we'll be in the bushes. If we only go a little bit right, we'll be in the tree area. But if we go right, it's significantly better than going left. And we'll get to that path by making small adjustments, because I think the truth about product is that most of the decisions that we take are two-way decisions. And this is only even more true at an early stage of a company's life. You'll waste more time trying to be perfect than just stumbling your way onto the right path. So focus on being directionally correct. So on to delivery. So with delivery, one of the key tools in the toolbox is the user journey, but maybe not in the way that you might expect or how you've used it before in larger companies. So in larger companies, I use user journeys to make sure that we were covering all the potential paths through a feature. We'd use it to catch any edge cases we missed or to discover new opportunities we could expand into. But that's not how I've used it in Abacum. So in Abacum, we've used the user journey as a prioritization tool. We focus on a single theme. We build a really, really happy path. And then working together with our amazing customer success team, we fill all the gaps. An example is our first flow. So our first flow, we would take last month's numbers, put them into our platform, read the results in some tables, and they could share them with a colleague. If anywhere in that, there was another piece that came into the wheel, it spun off, and we couldn't move forward. And it was the happy path. But that happy path helped us go through this whole loop. And then we used customer success to fill in these gaps. And that was really powerful for us as we built out our initial happy path, and we could test the value of that whole user journey really quick. And that brings us to customer success. I mentioned that the customer success team was instrumental for us, and it continues to be, because it's not and I'm not talking about like a customer service team. Our customer success team is amazing. They're much more than a customer service team. They take on more account management roles. They are really an extension of our product. They help us provide value to customers that we don't currently support all the use cases in the application. So as I was mentioning, they filled in the gaps there. And we try and empower them. And we typically do it when we're faced with a complex challenge and need additional time to deliver. This could be need more time in product, need more time in design and engineering, but we know the customer value is there and we want to start providing this for the customer. As I was mentioning before, the proof of concept as a way of research. We want to start providing to the customer so we have more access to their problems and understand a bit more. And in these situations, a specific example for us is the back office, which you see here. So this is our back office. Basically, we expected a specific feature to take about 3 to 6 months of design, development, and product time, just because it's really complex to explain to users how our current state of our platform was and what they needed to do. But the problem with this was the feature blocked almost all the value the customer would get out of the platform. And the more we dug into it, we recognized that, okay, well, this is something that doesn't need to be changed frequently. So maybe what we can do instead is do this heavy lift with our customer success team, and then we can take the customer value, and instead of having to wait 6 months to deliver it, we can do it in 2 weeks. And so that's what we did. Basically, reduced the time for customer value from 6 months to 2 weeks. And the key thing here is that when you're in such an early stage, you really have to do unscalable things until you're able to scale them. So don't be scared of that. Okay, so this graph is one I take from image from Basecamp. There we go. And you'll see here on this side, it's performance. And then this side is development time. So what you see here is really the key is this red lettering, compare down. So in this early stage, you're going to be shipping quickly because you're able to. You're not having a large degree of confidence and success, so you cover that by shipping. And you're always going to have this big ideal of where you want to go. And the thing that's been really useful for us is constantly saying compare down. So don't look at where we're supposed to go. Look at what the baseline is today. And that can be something as simple as like, the customer can do this, yes or no. And when that answer is no, and the customer can't do it, the baseline of allowing the customer to do it is better than not. So what we do is we compare down and we ship quickly to be able to bring these things to the customers so that, again, we can learn, because we're shipping to learn, not to earn. And the last piece of advice on delivery is just keep swimming. You'll find that you'll be telling stakeholders no quite a bit. And these are founders, sometimes investors, even your design and engineering counterparts. And at times, I think you'll also want to say yes to some of these requests, right? Because you'll be asking for engineers to write low quality code, and you'll be asking for designers to produce a suboptimal user experience. But in this early stage, the fastest way to discover if you're going to make it is to ship and bring these things to customers. But this is a teeter-totter, right? This is not forever. And we're seeing that even now, right? We've closed this round and we're starting to take on a bit more quality into what we're producing. And I think the important piece of this is that you always balance quality and quantity. In the beginning, we were just really focused on increasing our product surface area because we sell to mid-market customers, and they need to have a solution that covers a lot of their needs. And so we just kind of balance the quality and quantity, and now just do that in a way that you're actively participating in the decision that you take. So make sure that you're not just doing quantity because of quantity or quality because of quality. Make sure that you understand the decision that you're making and why it's right for that stage. Sounds fun? So here's what I suggest looking for if you decide that you want to go join a company as the first PM. First, I think the number one thing is to find good founders. At this stage as the first PM, you're going to be working with them day in and day out. So look for founders that have complementary skills to you. I think that here for me in Abakum, both the founders come from really strong in finance, really a lot of experience raising venture capital, and even working in technology. So we complemented ourselves a lot with my product knowledge and experience working in technology, and we created a really well-balanced team. And then make sure that they're going to invest in their teams. This, I always say, there's a huge difference in being cheap and being frugal. And this was much easier when you were before COVID. This is something I did when I was looking to join my first Series A startup. Was I would go and I would look at I'd go in person and see the people working, and I would look to see, like, do they give people 2 monitors? And it sounds silly, but if founders aren't willing to invest in multiple monitors for those that need them, or the tools that you need to get your job done, it's a bit of, penny wise but pound foolish. And then find a good team, right? So look at who the investors are, do some due diligence. They're going to have a really big influence on what your company values and trajectory look like. And then find your counterparts. Make sure your counterparts in engineering and design and across the company have worked with PMs before, or they're open to a product culture. And again, look for these complementary skill sets and expertise in their respective disciplines. And then find a good problem. So I've been lucky with both TravelPerk and Abakum. They were problems that I had seen. So I had traveled extensively for business before joining TravelPerk. So I had spent 300 days or so in a hotel one year, and I knew the solutions were really terrible. And then joining Abakum, I had been leading the monetization area of TravelPerk, and so I've been working closely with finance. And I got to look under the hood and see just how much of how companies are run from Excel, and just the options they have there are not the strongest. And then know the landscape. So see what's out there and make sure that it's the right place for you to be. So in summary, if you take 5 things away from this, remember to ship to learn, not to earn, as the first PM. And then listen to Voltaire and cultivate your product judgment. When you're thinking about taking a decision, think about the bear. Go away from the bear and be directionally correct. And then compare down. Always be looking how you can ship and provide incremental incrementalism to the customers that you're serving. And then if you decide to go at it and be a first PM somewhere, find good founders, teams, and problems. So that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Andrew. That was super interesting. If you have questions to Andrew's talk or his experience at Abakum, feel free to put them in the comments on YouTube, and we will address them after the panel, which is coming now, where we bring everyone together and we have the chance to ask some questions. So feel free to put them in YouTube. And thanks, Andrew, again. I will bring now the panelists to the front. There we go. We have 4 people from 4 different countries. Goodbye, Andrew, by the way. See you later. We have 4 people from 4 different countries living in 4 different other countries for work. Maybe you can give a quick introduction to yourself, starting with Dominique and then going around.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for having me. Super, super exciting to be in this virtual setup. I did my university exchange in Barcelona and really loved the city, so I'd rather be there in person. But no, I'm speaking to you from Zurich, Switzerland today. Yeah, like about myself, I'm the first product manager at Prisma. We are a connected learning network that provides kids in grades K through 12 with access to progressive education to prepare them to thrive in the complex world, which is the 21st century. I directly work with our founders, and I'm responsible for the product vision, roadmap, down to the execution together with the engineers. And next to that, I also run the no-code ops for the current platform that we've sort of cobbled together as an MVP to support our teaching program until we have our own custom software.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, Alex, go ahead.
No, great introduction. You wanted to add something to that, or?
No, thank you. Handing the word over back to you.
Magali, if you want to go next, quickly
Yeah,
introduce
sure.
yourself.
Can you hear me correctly?
Yeah, now it's perfect.
Perfect, cool. So I'm Maggie. I'm from Argentina. I'm currently sitting in Buenos Aires, but I've been working for US for a couple of years now. I have a software engineering background, so I'm a very technical PM. I'm part of the Singularity University alumni. Been traveling 18 months as a digital nomad, so I'm very used to working remotely with different cultures and different time zones. And I've been a TEDx organizer here in Buenos Aires. And now I joined Bucket Listers as the first PM and also the first technical hire. So it's a very similar thing, like doing from the long-term strategy, executing like right now, but also thinking like what should happen, building the team, product development and design.
Cool. Thanks for your intro. Corinna, if you want to go next.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Karina. I'm currently in a VP of product role at Rome, where I was actually the first PM over 5 years ago. And since then, it was a hell of a journey. We grew the team to 15 product managers that I now look after. So that was just an amazing growth period to go through. Originally, I am from Germany, and I am now in New Zealand, where I've been for about 7 years now. It was a little bit unintentional, but I really love it here. But that does mean that it's about 5 a.m. for me now. So I got a very big can of coffee with me that I'll be working through. But yeah, super excited to be here despite the time.
Cool. Thanks for the intro. And last but not least, Arjen, our local hero from Barcelona. If you can introduce yourself as well quickly.
Yeah, so also based in Barcelona. My name is Arjen. I'm director of product at Maze. We are a rapid testing platform. So we enable agile teams to test customer-facing experience really quickly. I am responsible for the product vision, strategy, and team. Also joined as kind of the first PM, and that eventually grew into this role. So super happy to be here.
Nice, cool. It's great to have so many different backgrounds and different disciplines, but all of you have one thing in common. Either you've been or you're currently the only PM at the company. And we would like to learn a bit more, like Andrew gave a lot of instruction already on how to deal with problems that come around when you're the only one. But let's have a bit of a discussion. And since we're all like super remote at the moment, maybe we can also start with that topic. So Dominique, for example, you've already been the first product person in 2 different companies. One of them, as you told me, was fully remote. Any tips for the audience on how to survive as the only PM when the team is completely distributed?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty current topic at the moment, I guess, for everyone. In fact, both of the companies that I PM'd for were remote. Like the first one went remote exactly at the point where I like sort of moved into product management. So I actually don't even know what it would be like to be a non-remote product manager. So I guess I can't really compare. But for me, it's never really been surviving as a remote PM. It's really like I feel I really thrive in this environment because, well, especially for us, most of my team works in the US. Our engineers are in Uruguay, so they have a bit of a time zone difference. And this gives me sort of a lot of time during my day to do, uninterrupted thinking, sort of really have the time to, focus on the bigger picture. And then in the evenings, I really focus on unlocking any problems that my team might have. So it really gives me a natural structure to my day that I think otherwise would be really, really difficult to have. So for me, this has been really fortunate. And in terms of tips, I think for myself in the past 8 months that I've been with Prisma, what's worked really well is, first of all, definitely over communicate. And second, don't skip the retros. So you make sure you're improving continuously. And one thing that I might want to say about over communication is especially in a remote team, I see it as sort of like a funnel. I try to make sure that our team members, or especially the rest of the product team, hears about ideas many times, because I think as a remote team, what can happen is that you feel you're keeping everybody in the loop, but really, what you're saying is sort of getting lost into the chatter of Slack and other things that your team is doing. So I try to really when things are in an idea stage, have sort of a low priority communication, and then make the communication more higher priority as the idea moves down the funnel, to make sure to keep everyone in the loop. And then of course our bi-weekly retros, where we really focus on improving the ways we work together, considering that we're all remote.
Nice. But maybe another opinion to kind of the same topic, Magali, you just started at a fully remote company, as you said in the intro. How is the experience for you so far, and how can you leverage the learning that you made from other companies where you've been product manager for this new gig?
Yeah, sure. It's my second time as a remote PM. So a couple of things that I try to do is to have very strong relationships with the people that I work with, not only my team, but also my stakeholders or other relevant participants. So I always have these one-on-ones to get to know the other person, very informal, not work related, because that's gonna make everything way easier. And I also try to not assume things. So I tend to ask a lot of different questions, because there's probably a reason why things are the way they look right now. And I try to find what's the whole story about it. So I always try to push for these uncomfortable, sometimes hard questions like vision and long-term strategy, and what are the risks, what are the unknowns, because that's where the good information comes in, and it's much easier to do the work.
Nice. There were actually quite some tips also for all the other PMs working fully remote at the moment. So it's not only for single PMs at companies. In Andrew's talk, we heard a lot about picking the right CEO or the right C-level to work with, because if you're not so many people, it's probably that you have a lot to do with them over the course of the year. Karina, as you said, you work at the same company for 5 years now, going all the way up in the ladder of product. Maybe you can share a bit how was the relationship with the C-level for you, and how did you overcome problems that you probably had in the last couple of 5 years?
So I was actually really lucky in terms of the C-level support, or the founder, so the CEO of the current company that I'm with. was actually a product manager for many years before in Silicon Valley, and he was a product manager at Skype. And until he then started to build his own company. So I always had like that support, and I actually learned a lot from him. So he was really the person who kind of got me into product management and got me all the resources, and he got me the Marty Kagan inspired book on day one of my job. So he really actually set me up for this journey. So that was luckily never a big challenge for me to have to convince him. I think my challenges were a lot more around, well, in any leadership position, it's really around the people and the talent to then kind of grow the team. So the challenges I had at the start to find the people there were very different to the people I have to find when I hire now. In the early days, it's a lot more about the individual contributors and kind of the doers. And then after a few years, I had to think about, well, how do I scale the kind of the coaching side of my role, because I can't have one-on-ones with 15 people anymore. So then I had to find product managers that also have people management skills. And then I had to think about, okay, how do I now transition individual contributors that used to report to me to those new managers? Those are kind of the situations that I never thought about before. And I don't know if you can read any books on how to deal with those situations. So yeah, it was really around managing the people, finding the right talent, and then kind of scaling the coaching side really effectively, so everyone has enough support in the day-to-day. That has been and still is my biggest challenge. But whereas now, though, it's more around how do I scale my knowledge and and the best practice across that many people.
Well, that's interesting. And as you mentioned, having a C-level or a CEO that comes from product, you probably had it a little bit easier to kind of bring the product mindset into the company. Arjen, maybe you hired as the first product person at Maze, which probably, considering the product, is quite design and user research heavy as well. So the product mindset, I could imagine, was there already. Or maybe you can share a bit from your experience what your biggest problems were when like facing, or you faced when you started at Maze, and how you overcome them in terms of product mindset and bringing product management to the way more structured into the company.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I was also super lucky with the founders, because they were very, or still are, very product minded. So Jonathan, the CEO, he was basically the product manager, and he actually did an amazing job at setting everything up. I think the biggest struggle that I had, and maybe others can relate, is that well, Jonathan came more from a design background, and so the product vision, the strategy, the goals, those were not really that solid in place yet. And so you find yourself in a balancing act of, and I think that's when you're the first PM, you're an individual contributor, but you're also kind of head of product, right? You have to take this leadership role in setting the vision and the strategy, and maybe even already starting to think about hires. So you end up being this kind of octopus, trying to do everything, and you also have a team that is waiting to build stuff, right? So you're like, okay, shall I take a month off and just think about the strategy and do all of that? You can't. So I think the risk there, and certainly one that I ran into, is that you just start looking at the customer requests, right? And you start looking at what are customers saying. But yeah, that might not fully align with the vision and like the strategy where you would actually like to go. So I think it's so important to find the balance between kind of defining the vision, defining the strategy where you want to go, really putting the time in there, which also makes it so much easier to prioritize. So once I had those things in place, every quarter was just like, this is what we're going to do, you know, and it was so much easier than before, where I was kind of like looking, okay, there's requests here and there, which one do I do? Okay, well, this one has a lot. Okay, let's just do that. And then I have some time to look at the vision. And now everything is kind of more structured. And I think that was the biggest problem, and also the biggest win that I had in kind of taking the time to set up the vision, the strategy, and the goals.
So there was a lot of evangelism for product processes and things that you had to bring to the company, as I understood, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, and also like in the first week that I joined, we decided to change the way of working from Scrum to Shape Up. So that also took up a massive amount of time trying to tweak it and putting all the templates and the processes and everything. So yeah, you just find yourself being pulled into so many directions, and it's really important to just say, okay, wait, where is the long-term value here, you know? And yeah, that usually ends up being more on the strategy side.
Nice. So if we stick a bit with this evangelism topic, and Dominique, I've watched your TED talk on the topic of why identity is a human right, which was quite interesting. In the talk, you were kind of evangelizing your product you were working for at that time to the outside, which I found quite amazing. How important is it for you to evangelize within your company and like bringing product management in that sense as the only PM more inside of the company in terms of evangelism? Maybe you can share a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. And just wanted to quickly comment on what Arjen has said. Like, I relate so much on that vision piece. So like, I'm really glad to hear that like other people had that same struggle, because I think sometimes as a PM, like when you don't have like your vision and 5-year strategy completely sorted out, you feel like a failure. But I think we all like have to accept that, yeah, like sometimes there is those moments where you have the team that wants to build things, and you sort of, you know, have to make it work. You can't just take it a month off to like go do some high level thinking. So I really appreciated that. Yes. So yeah, funny enough, the TED talk that you were referring to, I gave that before I actually even moved into product management. So that wasn't in a capacity of a product manager, but I guess it was one of the reasons I then moved into product management for that product, because I was just really like excited about it and I wanted to learn all about it. And I really believed in the philosophy behind it. And so now at Prisma, so like as Corina and Arjen have mentioned, I'm also really fortunate that one of our founders is a former product manager himself. He used to be PM at Google. And so like the product mindset in the organization is definitely super strong. At the same time, like I guess Prisma is a bit different from like other companies here in the sense that our main offering is not our software product, it's our teaching services. Like we have our own teachers, we give classes. And so really like the product, it's almost like an internal product, like we're building it for our teachers and for our learners. And so really like, I think as a product team, we try to be humble and like sort of give center stage to, you know, the teachers who are doing the main work. And what like I did mostly over the past 6 months is I try to make them feel that they're really being heard. So I spend a ton of time like shadowing their work every day and like tell them what I see and what this means to me from a product perspective. So they really understand that like what we're building is based really on like the problems I'm seeing in their everyday life. And then I also try to build sort of like product ambassadors within our different stakeholder groups. So within our teachers, within even our learners, like our kids are they're like from 8 to 12 years old, but some of them already are really interested in tech and stuff. And so they're super excited to give me feedback, and they've become sort of almost like ambassadors of the product within the learners. And they're really excited, and like they bring their own ideas and make sure that sort of this topic is always present amongst the learners. And so, yeah, those two things have really been, I think, most important for me, like really making sure the users know that like I'm seeing them and like what we're building is based on their real problems, and like making sure we have those ambassadors that are sort of a bit closer to the product team within the stakeholders.
Nice. Maybe let's stick a bit more on the topic of the product mindset and how we can distribute this as the only one or the only one in the company. Corina, going from PM to VP probably required like a lot of adaptation to new situations and different types of product mindsets that you had to come up with over the years, and how you evangelized within the company. Maybe you can share a bit on how you managed it and how it changed for you and what kept you going in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it definitely changed a lot over the years. I do vividly remember joining my current company when, well, the company was about 20 people. It was mainly designers and developers at that stage. And everyone was kind of confused. Like, I was not there to code, I was not there to design. So what was I there to do? So in the early days, I took a very, well, like everyone said, a very hands-on approach that you need at the start, and I identified what were the kind of biggest gaps in the team. And back then, I remember the tech lead was doing like roadmaps and all this kind of stuff. So that was like a big pain. Like, he hated it. So that was, I just like tried to find current problems that I can take away from people just to kind of show my value and really build trust in the team. I really do think that in those early days, like, any PowerPoint presentation of this is what good product management is, like, wouldn't have gone very far. So it was very hands-on, building trust by making people's lives easier in the product team. But then now the whole company is about 150 people. So that hands-on approach does not scale that well, of course. I can't be in every team anymore. So now I'm just experimenting with different things, actually, since last year, especially. I'm doing a lot more writing, and I do talks inside the company and also externally that I then share with people in the company. And that has actually really helped to get kind of my message out or evangelize what good product management looks like, kind of on a bigger scale. So that really helped. And I really like what you said, Dominique, with the ambassadors across the company. I think that's, like, either way, whether it's early stage or now at scale, having those ambassadors across the company is really, really crucial. So top level support is great. I do think you need that, but also think about how can you find those kind of supporters of product management who can spread the word for you across the whole company.
Nice. The last topic I have prepared before we then open the room for the audience to ask questions. And since we have an audience usually that is quite diverse, with people who want to get into product management, people being the only person or the only product manager at the company, but also people who are one of many product managers. For me, that would be the last topic where we could learn a bit, like, what's the differences. And Arjen, I know that you've worked in like very different companies. We've worked together at N26 a couple of months ago, but you worked in like very startups, all the way to hypergrowth companies where you've been like one of many. Are there any differences that you see between being the only one versus many? And what was the biggest one, and how did you dealt with it?
Yeah, so I think so. My first experience was a very kind of scrappy startup in Amsterdam. Then I moved to Typeform, and there pretty quickly we already had a team. And I think when you have a team, you have peers to talk to, right? You have people to spar with, to go nuts with some sticky notes. And like I remember when we found that floor. So N26 had a new office, and there was like a floor that wasn't been used yet. So me, Alex, and Fadila, another PM, we just camped out there for like a week. We had all of these glass walls that were meeting rooms, and we just were mapping out flows. We were strategizing, and you don't have that when you're the only PM, right? And I think that's definitely a miss. The funny thing is that now at Maze last year, I was basically the only PM. And I didn't realize it, right? Because you're so busy, you're doing all these different things. I was having a great time, and the team was great. So I was getting that kind of peer feeling from the development team and from the founders. But now I just recently onboarded 2 PMs to the team, and it's just like mind blowing, because like all of a sudden you're having all of these different discussions. You're in Miro. You're thinking things out, and I think just having that space to think, to brainstorm, to talk that kind of product language, to geek out, I guess, is really valuable and also really fun, right? And I think it motivates it, at least now having a fresh pair of eyes. We just onboarded Natalie. She's a PM from Doodle, and she has this like she's very structured, logical thinking, great at research, and she brings all of these things. So I'm stepping up my game as well, and I think it just elevates product management to another level, which I'm really excited about now.
Nice. I definitely remember taking over that floor, which was supposed for 150 people, and we occupied it with 3 for a week. Anyway, Magali, I saw on your LinkedIn that you also had quite a lot of different stations with different companies. Maybe you can share a bit of insight on how the differences for you were being one of many versus the only one.
Yeah, sure. In my case, I realized that when I was part of a product team, someone else already set the standards, like the product processes and best practices were already in place. But now, because I have to build everything from scratch, I should pick my battles, because we cannot do everything at the same time. And there's a lot of product work to include. So for example, like being data-driven, it's one huge conversation that should be part of our day-to-day, but it hasn't been there yet. So just making sure I set time to discuss these high-level topics with the key stakeholders, so we start including them in our day-to-day.
Nice. Wow. So that was all I had on my list. I'm already looking at the questions that come in through YouTube. Please let them come in even more. They're pretty good. But before we we finish the panel, I would like to go around a bit again, and everyone just giving one tip or one thing they would have liked to do differently or have known before they had their first day as a solo PM. So maybe Dominique, if you can start again.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, great question. I mean, all in all, I would say, I'm pretty happy with how it went. We have an amazing team, like probably the best team I've ever worked with. So kudos to them. I think I didn't have to do much for this to go right with these amazing people. But like, I think going back to what I commented before on Arjen's answer also, like the vision part, definitely, like we all intuitively know this is really important. But I think once you get into that whirlwind of, getting started, having to set up the processes and everything, like really remembering, okay, take that time to step back and make sure you get your vision right. It will, maybe delay you a bit in the beginning, but then, will really accelerate you a lot in the longer term. I think that's the recommendation I will give my not so much younger self. Yeah.
Nice. Corinna, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not a massive person of regrets. I do think, well, if I would go through that journey again, I think I would have a more confident approach this time around from the start. I think it took me a couple years in retrospect to really maybe even have some friction sometimes, right? Like push a bit harder on, no, this is a better way to do it because X, Y, Z. And so I had a slightly softer approach at the very start. I mean, it was 5 years ago, so my knowledge of product management was not as mature yet. The industry has also quite matured in those 5 years, so it is a bit easier now than it was even 5 years ago. But yeah, so maybe next time going in with more confidence kind of from the start rather than a slower build up is what I would strive for.
That's a good tip. That's a really good one. Magali, you want to go next?
Yeah, in my case, I would say, because I have a very strong technical background and that part of the role comes easy to me, what it's very important to me is that I always remember that the role is about the people, the team, and the talent. And a big part of my day needs to be communicating with other team members so they have like full perspective on what's going to happen and everybody feels heard and included. And yeah, that's one thing that I always have to keep remembering myself.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. And Arjen?
Yeah, so I'm also pretty happy with how it went. If I could be critical with myself and kind of give myself tips, I think I would have liked to have been stronger at defining really what success means. I think, and it ties in with the vision and the strategy, but really knowing like not just is this feature adopted, but are we moving closer to that North Star metric, or however you measure success. That's so important to nail down, and I think we're nailing that now, but it took a while to get there. And then secondly, yeah, if you have the chance, put effort in hiring sooner, because it's always that balance with like, do I spend a lot of time in this hiring process, or do I just do stuff myself, right? And I think every product leader will attest to that. And yeah, investing the time in hiring soon and having other people to support you and to geek out, as I just said, but also to just actually do product work compounds, right? It's the compounding effect of adding more strong people to the team.
Wow, cool. That was our panel. Thanks so much for sharing experiences and insights. And even if all of you had the same kind of problem to face, there were different ways and different types of product managers that you've been over the years. We bring back Andrew, and as I said, we do have a couple of questions. So if you want to put your questions in YouTube, if you want to address it to someone directly, feel free to mention the name. Otherwise, we just open it up for the panel and Andrew. To the last point, Arjen, that you said with like handing off work to someone else and creating a new role, there is a good question from Achilli. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. He wants to know, as a first PM, have you experienced having to double as different roles, like taking over another role as well? If so, which ones, and how did you realize when to spin those roles off to make a new hire? Maybe Arjen, you, just because you answered that,
yeah,
the way maybe you want to take
yeah,
it.
so I already saw that question in the comment, and I was just like, yeah, that yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, so many roles, right? Not even two. And I think, yeah, you just end up, so you join as a product manager, right? But then, as Andrew said, there's no company that already has, like is in seed and already has a strategist and a data analyst and a user researcher and a usability expert, and all, like maybe one of these, but definitely not all of them. So I found myself very quickly acting also as the Scrum Master, also as the user researcher, also as the data analyst. So yeah, and I think you end up doing not an incredible job at any of them, right? And that's, I think, obviously you can't do that when you're balancing everything. And then that comes back to, okay, like where does it compound the most to add somebody now? And I think for us, that was recently we found out, like, well, I think we need way more effort on speaking to customers. Really, I mean, that's our motto, right? We're Maze, we're a rapid testing platform, and so we should also be super customer centric. And me doing all of the interviews and doing everything at the same time just didn't scale. So while some companies may hire a product researcher or a user researcher way later at their stage or whatever, we decided to do it now as kind of the I guess third or fourth hire in the product team. So yeah.
That's interesting. Any others who wants to share how they're dealing with this? Dominic?
Yeah, I'd love to. Oh,
sure,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, I can 100% relate to what you just said there. But I also found that like doing all these different jobs, like for example, of a data scientist, because we didn't have a data scientist in the early days, was actually like the most valuable experience for me. And I think now as a product manager, I have like a much better understanding of like product analytics and setting up dashboards and events and all of that stuff. So I think it's a really valuable experience to go through at some point for a product manager to do all these jobs, because it really gives you empathy and that deep understanding. And I think the second point that I think a lot of people don't think about, especially as the company then grows and you start to have, you know, a few product managers and maybe they start reporting to you, it's that individual contributions versus managing people ratio. It's a really, really hard one to get right. I certainly didn't get it right at the start. And it took me, a year to kind of really pare back my individual work and really focus more on the coaching, because it's really hard when you have your own fires to put out, when then other people come to you with their fires and they want help with. And so it's really hard to prioritize and then to really have, you know, that patience to sit down and listen and help others if you have your other stuff on your plate. So, I mean, there's no golden number, but I think between like when you have 3 to 5 product managers starting to report to you, you really, really, really have to pull back on your individual work.
Nice. Maybe one other person being able to answer to that question, and then go to the next one. Dominique, maybe you want to.
Yeah, like I just like in a similar vein of what Corina just said, I also think it's super valuable to double up with those different roles and really like the product, how did you call it, Andrew, product intuition or something, I think is really a way to like speed this up. Like I, for example, do, like, as I said, like I run the entire operations as well, plus like first level tech support for our learners, you know, who struggle with Zoom or like have other sorts of issues. And this has really like accelerated my learning curve in terms of what the product needs to do 500%. Like if I had not done all those different things, I would be sitting in my bubble, like researching, oh, what does Google Meets do to like make sure, you know, like it wouldn't work. So really, I think as the first PM, also with a look towards then eventually maybe leading a team of PMs and needing this context of really like knowing the organization in and out, I think it's probably not good to like sort of avoid this. Although, of course, at one point, like we now also hire support for operations and stuff, because at one point you just can't handle it anymore. But I would definitely recommend not shying away from that either.
Well, thanks for sharing. Coming to 2 questions that kind of deal with the same problem that came up during your talk, Andrew, and that's why I'm addressing it first to you. Asked by Natalia. Hey, Andrew, how do you, or some do's and don'ts you can recommend during your first 30, 60, 19 days as a first PM joining, after having worked for an organization? Like what's the difference?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Natalia. I saw that come in there, and I was looking forward to talking about this one a little bit, because I think for me, I broke this down into like one goal for each of these periods. So for the first 30 days, my goal was just to understand and learn. And I basically went around and I asked everybody in the company, which was not a lot, right? We were 11 people. I asked them, like, what's the number one thing that keeps you up at night about the company? And actually what I came back with was all 11 people saying we might be building a services business. And it was like, okay, well, this is great. And so I knew that there was some things to do there about educating, like what I was there to do and why we were bringing a product person on and how we were going to turn that around and what it looked like. But I didn't start doing anything there. I just asked questions and just tried to understand where we were at. And then in the second, like that second bucket, 60 days was for me was all about building trust. So I focused on execution. And Corina, I think you mentioned this in one of your answers, but it was just building trust through execution. So I was getting into the details. I was moving things faster. I was putting in small changes for more like operational efficiencies. Really, I wasn't trying to come in and put a vision. I was just saying like, hey, maybe we should move refinement a couple days before planning, and just seeing how those things came out. And then the last 90 days is when I kind of started thinking about influence. And so it was like, okay, maybe now we can start to to push on some of these things that were in the roadmap, and do they make sense? What's the goal? Where are we trying to go with this? But I waited a little bit till I had some trust before I started pushing on anything. And so that was kind of my 90-day plan, was to start to influence these decisions in the roadmap. And I think the one thing that you shouldn't do is come in and make a bunch of changes or judge anyone for where the company is in the state that you join. I think that you're going to be coming from a big environment where things have had years to become robust, and you're going to be going to a smaller company where things are going faster. It's a little bit, it's new, and so just find where you can add value and don't judge for where it is.
Yeah, the last one is a pretty good one. I experienced it too in the past, that you take things for granted at bigger companies, and then if you start at a smaller one, you're like, okay, wow, why did they not do it? And it's just because probably there were other prioritization happening at that time. And anyway, any other opinion regarding tips or things you would do or don't do in the first 30, 60, or 19 days?
Yeah, in my case, I had a similar experience where once I joined the company, what I started to do is to collect everybody's ideas, because they have been using the product way before me. And I started to execute on these no-brainer, low-hanging fruits that were like small, and those should happen. And I feel like that's one way of building trust with the team, so they can see that their ideas are being implemented, and then to start working on. That's one thing that I'm doing at the same time, like executing on these low-hanging fruits while I'm planning for the long term. So I'm always trying to differentiate that to see where's the idea or big project goes into, which is the big bucket. So I'm having these different type of conversations with my team, so I make sure they understand what I'm thinking, and that communicates well.
Nice. There's one last question I would ask, also looking at the time, which is from Reka. Again, I hope I pronounced this correctly. When you're a PM, I'm sure there is a certain passion you develop for the product you're building, and I'm adding that probably it's because you're the only PM, you're responsible for the whole product. So you kind of build a personal connection to that product also. And she wants to know, how do you make sure if you're moving on, that like, how do you deal with this? Like, is it fine for you just giving away the work to someone else, or giving away the product? And because in some sense, you're almost like a founder, like you have a very big portion of how this product is going to look like in the beginning, because you're owning the strategy, the product strategy. So probably have a very deep connection to that product. How do you deal with that? And maybe asking that question more to the people who went through that process already. So maybe Corinna, if you want to take this one, you were nodding all the time, so I guess you have an answer here.
Yes, I have gone through it I've gone through it a couple of times, but one product that immediately came to mind when you just asked this question, it was like, yeah, giving up the baby almost. So I had to do it. I handed it over twice, and the first time it was a lot more around, here's the roadmap, here's where this product is going, and just go do your thing. And that didn't work that well. It was very, prescriptive, and I don't think the product manager could really show the whole potential. The second time I handed it over, I was a lot smarter about it, and so I just shared the context and the long-term kind of vision and the impact this product is creating. And it's leading with context, right? So not telling people how to do it, but just making sure they understand the impact, the purpose, and the vision, but then kind of being okay. And it was hard, but you have to kind of be okay with them then using their own experience, their own processes to actually take that product forward. But that has to be an intentional step that you have to be okay with.
any other opinion?
I can pitch in. I guess for me, I felt this when moving to different companies, and so I thought that for the one company I was working at, that they had a really cool culture and everything, and that's why I liked it so much. And it took me moving to another product/problem space to realize that I really, really loved the product, the problem space, the users, and everything there. So I think what I learned from that is to, like, hopefully you have some sort of choice, right? That you're not just being pawned to somewhere else. So I think we are product managers, right? And that's like the word product is very forefront in there. And I think it's so important to have some sort of a passion, some sort of affinity in the problem, or the how the customers think and feel about the space and the problem. I think is so important. And if you feel that, it makes your job way more easy. So yeah, like after changing to a certain company/product, it made me really realize, like, I really need to be passionate, and that's what I again really found at Maze, and it just mind-blowing the difference it makes.
Nice. I couldn't have ended the ProductTank better than with the last two sentences of being passionate about what we're doing. Thanks so much. I'm bringing back in Guido as well, who we're dealing with all the background managing. Thanks for that. Thanks to all the panelists and to Andrew for preparing the talk. That was super insightful. I think the audience learned quite a lot during the last hour. It was great speaking and learning from all of you. And I hope I see you all at the next ProductTank in Barcelona. Thanks so much and have a good evening.
Thank you all.
Thanks for
Cheers.
having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks to the audience as well. Cheers.